We begin in China, where US Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen continues to meet with top Chinese officials on her 4-day visit to Beijing. During her meeting with Chinese Vice Premier He Lifeng, she struck a positive tone on trade and investment ties between the two countries. Yellen also sat down with female economists for lunch. She told the group, despite the differences, their perspectives had some similarities.
I'm pretty sure that we share similar stories and experiences about what a career in economics is like and the challenges you can face. I see it all the time. I'm almost the only woman in the room, and I'm sure many of you have had that same experience at decision-making tables.
Yellen, the first woman to head the US Treasury, has made women's contributions and importance to economies a focal point of her tenure. Zhang Chongying tells us more about her visit from Beijing.
Chinese Vice Premier He Lifeng met U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen on Saturday in Beijing. Well, in the meeting, Vice Premier He, authorized by President Xi Jinping, said Beijing stands ready to work together with the U.S. side to implement the consensus reached between the two presidents in Bali, hold more dialogue, communicate on topics related to the economy and trade. And for her part, Yellen stressed that there is a pressing need for the world's two biggest economies to closely communicate and exchange views on various challenges. She said there is ample room for American companies to engage in trade and investment with China, given the fact that the two set a record for bilateral trade in 2022 despite tensions. Well, Yellen will wrap up her China visit on Sunday. During the 4-day trip, she stressed a commitment to improving economic ties. And let's not forget that this comes amid escalating tensions given U.S. export controls on semiconductors and chip-making equipment. The Biden administration is also preparing a new executive order to curb outbound U.S. investment in China. And China also imposed countermeasures to control the export of two critical minerals used in advanced technologies just days before Yellen's arrival. So while let's hope the visit will improve ties and promote economic cooperation, it's still unclear whether there will be any major breakthroughs. But perhaps one clear positive sign is that they are talking at all. CGTN, Beijing.
For more on this, we're joined by Einar Tangen, Senior Fellow at the Taihe Institute and Chairman of Asian Narratives. Einar, good to see you again. What's the significance of this trip and what progress has been made between the two sides?
Well, Sally, it's interesting. What you have here is a Treasury Secretary, in essence, doing what Blinken, who's the Secretary of State, should have done. She's been better welcomed than perhaps her counterpart, mostly because the Chinese respect her. She's very data-driven. She's very practical. In the past, she has poured cold water on this idea that tariffs work. So there was great hopes that there would be some breakthroughs. But she, on her side, has been very careful to toe the official Biden line, which is that security concerns of the U.S. trump all.
And of course, she's aware and didn't hide the fact that there are bilateral tensions, but she also highlighted the record high US-Chinese trade last year and how it showed that there was, quote, ample room to engage in trade and investment. What areas have most potential in that regard?
Well, I mean, right now, because of the economic situation, declining real income in the U.S., China has become a bastion of everything that you need that still has some quality, but it is also cheaper, whether it's clothes, shoes, furniture, etc. China is providing it. But it goes beyond that. China is a huge producer of intermediate goods, whether it's chemicals or parts, auto parts. As Americans hang on to their cars longer, they need parts. Those parts, a large number of them, are made in China.
And Yellen criticized China's handling of US companies. Beijing is accusing the US of weaponizing trade embargoes. But she also stated that she wanted to ensure healthy competition with a fair set of rules. What kind of rules do you think would suit both countries, given that there's been such a struggle so far?
Well, the rules should be the same on both sides. You know, it was a little hypocritical for her to say that U.S. companies are getting a bad shake in China when so many Chinese companies in the U.S. have been kicked out, blacklisted. Huawei obviously comes to mind, and now they're mulling over new restrictions on investment by Americans and American companies in China. So right now, what needs to happen is there needs to be some good faith. First off, as she has pointed out, these tariffs are hurting the U.S. economy more than Chinese businesses. Get rid of those. That would be a good start. But in terms of rules, they have to be the same on both sides, and you can't just arbitrarily throw in, these issues that the U.S. wants to use to, in essence, contain China. You can't start with the premise that I'm going to slap you around and you should like it.
Well, and perhaps this is Washington, though, in their own way, trying to extend an olive branch. I mean, this visit by Yellen comes just weeks, maybe a month after Blinken's visit. There's been several meetings with high-ranked businessmen from the U.S. Between Xi. Does this signal that there could be a Biden-Xi meeting on the horizon, do you think?
Well, there could be a meeting. The question is what happens. I mean, at the last meeting, it was just let's try to communicate a little bit better. But, the U.S. isn't playing ball completely on that side. They still have, blacklisted Chinese, cabinet members. And they keep adding these restrictions on. So they can meet, but it's going to be very difficult. Remember, Biden is now locked in a battle for control of the White House. It's coming up in 2024. He's going to be very reticent to involve himself in anything that could be seen as friendly to China, simply because both sides of the aisle are now involved in the hype that China is somehow the reason that the U.S. is having problems.
All right, Einar Tangen, thanks so much.